Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Kate Boyd and it's the second day of December. I'm doing a December project where I'm practicing all of the sonatas for violin and piano by Beethoven. I'm doing this because I'm preparing for concerts in January, and I thought since I had to practice all of this stuff anyway, that I would let you come on in and take a seat next to me while I practice. And every video that I make is going to be featuring a different movement of the Beethoven violin sonatas. Last night I did the last movement of the 10th sonata, and today I'm going to do the first movement of the 10th sonata. So this is his Opus 96. This is the latest violin sonata, and it's written quite a few years after the previous 9 violin sonatas, which were all kind of written within a few years of each other. And it's incredibly tranquil at the beginning. And at the beginning you kind of hear some bird calls, right? So, and then, right, so there's interplay between the violin and the piano right from the get-go. So I've chosen a few spots that I'm going to practice with you right now. I'm going to start with measure 37. And it's a little bit tricky because it's got 2 against 3 and it's got some unusual patterns. So I'll just play it for you. So what's really tricky about this is we've got the 2 against 3 that starts it, which goes, but it has to sound really smooth and it has to sound pastoral in nature, right? So we can't really have it be jaggedy. I think that the purpose of the 2 against 3 rhythms was to make it a little bit rhythmically ambiguous. And so we have to focus on playing the main beats, right? So really focusing on that kind of repeated A pedal point in the bass. And then this part is a little bit tricky because the hands are coming in toward each other, but they're not standard scale patterns. But what's really interesting is that the hands are symmetrical in their hand positions. And they converge on a single note. So even though the black-white key pattern is different in each hand, you can definitely practice this in hand positions. That's how I'm going to practice it right now. I'm going to practice and then into the next hand position, the next one. Right, and so I'm going to do that one more time. And then it should be pretty easy. So let me put those 2 things together. So the takeaway here is that it's really helpful when you've got different patterns in the right and the left hand to practice them by hand position. So I basically did that, right? And so I'll get a running start to that. Always thinking in terms of playing super smoothly. So I'm going to move on to the next section. The next spot I want to talk about is measure 82. And the challenge here, well, I'll play it for you first. It's kind of a tricky spot because you have all these thirds. It's kind of awkward. What I'm going for here is I want to have smooth top, and I of course have to have its voice so that the voices are not equal. I don't want it to sound like choppy because again this is a very tranquil kind of flowing character that we want. So we don't want it to be like, right, so it has to be, so I have to use my arm, but I also need this top line to sing. So the way I'm going to practice that is I'm going to play the top line first. And what I just did was the same fingering I'm going to use. Jump, jump. Especially at the end, I'm going 5, 5, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 5, 5. So, right, and now I'm going to play that with the bottom notes staccato. It'll be like this. Right, so. Right, now I don't know when we rehearse exactly how fast we're going to take it, so I need to build in a little bit of a buffer, so I'm not only practicing at the maximum speed I can go. I have a feeling we'll probably take a little time, but I'm going to go a little faster. Takeaway there is to practice when you've got thirds all in one hand, to really focus on the top line being smooth and well voiced, and then a good way to practice that is to practice the bottom voices staccato at the same time. The third place I'm going to show you is from the development, and oh my goodness, this part's a little bit tricky because this is a lot more thirds again, and it kind of goes on and on. Okay, so I'm going to play it for you. So this is marked sempre piano, so always piano, and we need it to be smooth. So this goes back to my axiom of always play musically. This is a place that's technically challenging because of the thirds, and it's easy to get to accidentally just practice it unmusically in like a technical exercise, which would sound something like, right, like really pushing in every note, but it has to be smooth. And so one way, if you have a technically challenging spot that feels awkward to play, like with parallel fourths or thirds or something like this, or even octaves, take the top line and play that alone and listen to how you're shaping it. I'm kind of wanting to go to dip down to the D sharp. And then this goes. So I really wanted to kind of snake around here. I want to get that shape in my ear. Like every time it changes direction, that's interesting to me. So I'm going, and then, so I'm really hearing that in the sound. Then putting it hands together, making sure that line is clean and clear. So always focusing on the music. Like that's a little tricky because of all the hand jumps, the jumps here. So focusing on the shape of the line. And then the other thing you should probably notice is technically I'm letting my fingers play, but I'm definitely moving in and out with my arms to make it smoother, right? Every gesture is one arm motion, and then I'm using rotation in the left hand, but then I'm going in and out on these, right? So I'm not just staying right. So that's how I'm making it smooth. And then always that smooth. So those are the three spots I wanted to talk about with you. So we talked about practicing unusual patterns, we talked about awkward thirds, and we talked about playing legato thirds, playing musically, using your arm to move around, and to use hand positions when playing in unusual patterns. Before I wrap up, I also want to tell you that this 10th sonata has 4 movements, and I talked about the 4th movement last night, and tonight I'm talking about the 1st movement, but I'm skipping over the 2nd and 3rd movement. So I'm just going to show you a little bit. I'm not going to practice it. I'm just going to play a little bit of the 2nd movement so you can hear it, because it's got such a beautiful, reverent theme, and the piano gets it first. So here's how it starts. And then the scherzo movement is the short 3rd movement that the 2nd movement leads into. And it's a very puckish, kind of impetuous character. So I'm going to play just a little bit of this. And then the violin has that, and the piano does a lot of this stuff. Right. So it's a kind of lighthearted character that precedes the dance-like final movement that we talked about last night, which is this theme. And so that's a preview of the 10th sonata. Now, as promised, I said at the end of every video I would give you a little update on the day, a little bit of a behind the scenes. And so today is a Friday. This is the 2nd to the last week of classes of the semester, and our piano studio recital that my students are doing is next Tuesday. And so I spent a lot of my teaching today really working with my students on developing a performance mindset and preparing for the upcoming recital. And so they were playing for each other and giving each other feedback, and we were talking about mental strategies to use to prepare and to feel really excited about performing and not to let the performance anxiety get the better of them. So that was the basic theme of my teaching today, a lot of performance preparation with my students. Thank you for practicing with me tonight. I'll see you tomorrow when we continue talking about Beethoven and his violin and piano sonatas. See you then.